12-year-old Marcus Jenkins sat quietly in the back row of his 7th grade classroom. It was career week at Jefferson Middle School, and one by one, students stood up to talk about what their parents did and began, "My name is Marcus, and my dad works at the Pentagon." Some talked about being chefs, nurses, bus drivers, and managers. Then a chuckle. Ms. Carver, the teacher, tilted her head, lips curled into a smile. "The Pentagon, Marcus? Really?" The classroom buzzed with interest, jokes, and polite applause. "That is a very ambitious claim. Are you sure about that?" He told me he cannot say too much because... When Marcus's name was called, he hesitated, then slowly stood, holding a small note card. He walked to the front, cleared his throat. Carver interrupted, chuckling softly. "That is convenient. A top-secret job. Marcus, this is a safe place for honesty. There's no need to pretend." A small pause followed. Marcus blinked. "Yes, ma'am." She raised an eyebrow. Some of the students laughed under their breath. Marcus nodded, though now his voice had shrunk. "He is in cybersecurity." As the laughter was louder this time, a boy in the front whispered, "Yeah, right, like he has a dad at the Pentagon." Then, from under his breath, he muttered, "She laughed, said I was lying." Just went back to his seat, cheeks flushed. Marcus lowered his eyes. His fingers clenched the edge of his note card, now crumpled at the corner. He did not say another word. When he got home that day, Marcus dropped his bag and disappeared into his room. His father, Richard Jenkins, noticed something was wrong immediately. "Are you all right, champ?" Marcus did not respond at first. Richard sat down beside him. "Who?" "I told them you work at the Pentagon, and she made fun of it." The class laughed too. "My teacher." Richard took a deep breath, eyes calm but sharp. "She did, huh? She did not believe me. Said it is not possible." After a moment of silence, Richard said, "All right then. We will show them what is possible." After a moment of silence, Richard said, "All right then. We will show them what is possible." 2 days later, career day continued at school with guest speakers. The class had heard from a local baker and a nurse when the vice principal walked in. "Miss Carver, your next guest is here." A Department of Defense badge was clipped neatly to his chest. The class fell silent. Marcus looked up, stunned. It was his dad. Carver stood frozen for a moment, then forced a smile. "Please come in. My job involves protecting classified military systems from cyber threats. I help keep the infrastructure safe, things that most people never see but depend on every day." The door opened, and in stepped a tall black man in a crisp navy suit. "Good morning," Richard said, standing tall. "I'm Richard Jenkins. I work in cybersecurity operations for the Pentagon." Ms. He stepped to the front, commanding the room without raising his voice. "It is about protecting our country's secrets and making sure missions do not fail because someone slipped through the network." Even the ones who had mocked Marcus sat perfectly still. Students listened, wide-eyed. One kid raised his hand. "So, like, you stop hackers?" Richard smiled. "That is part of it. But it is more than that." Another hand shot up. "Have you ever been in danger?" "Sometimes it is when people doubt what they cannot see. I have worn a uniform, served overseas, and I have faced danger in ways I cannot talk about. But the hardest part?" He turned just slightly and looked at Marcus. His dad was not just at the Pentagon, he was protecting the nation. Did not brag. He still sat in the back, still did his work. Only now, he sat up a little straighter. Some kids came to Marcus to say sorry. Others just gave him a nod in the hallway. The chicken nuggets had gone cold. He did not eat. Your words matter, even when people do not believe them. Sometimes, especially then. Even Jamal, his usual table mate, avoided eye contact. Marcus was not surprised. No one wanted to sit with a liar. The bell rang shortly after, but no one moved. He kept his head down, barely speaking, barely hearing anything the teachers said. But he paused when he noticed Marcus drop his bag without a word and slump onto the couch. His ears were still burning from the laughter. Every snicker echoed in his head. Miss Carver finally spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, truly." Richard nodded politely. "You are welcome." And then, before leaving, he added, "Next time a child tells you something, maybe believe them. Or at least ask before assuming, or when they are uncomfortable," Richard said, gently. After class, Miss Carver asked Marcus to stay behind. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I misjudged you, and your father." Marcus nodded, but said nothing. His silence spoke volumes. Word spread quickly. By lunch, everyone knew. The kid they had laughed at, but Marcus did not walk differently. The rest of that school day crawled for Marcus. At lunch, he sat alone. He stared at his lunch tray. That evening, his father stood at the kitchen counter, scrolling through something on his secure government phone. They laughed too. Said people like me do not get those jobs. "Want to talk about it?" Richard asked, sliding the phone into his pocket. Marcus shook his head, but Richard waited. "I told them the truth," Marcus finally mumbled, and they laughed. People laugh when they do not understand. It is not fair. "No," Richard agreed, walking over to sit beside his son. "It is not. But you did not do anything wrong. They do not think people like us belong there." Richard went quiet. He stared straight ahead for a moment, the weight of his own history settling in. "You know," he began, "when I was your age, I told someone I wanted to work for the Pentagon. White people?" Richard nodded. White teachers, white classmates. They did not see a soldier or an analyst in me, just a black boy who should lower his expectations. Marcus turned toward his dad. "So what did you do?" "I made a promise to myself that I would prove them wrong, not with shouting, not with fighting, but with every quiet, focused move I made." Marcus absorbed those words. Slowly, something shifted in his expression. Not quite confidence, but something close. "Can you come to school?" Richard smiled faintly. "Already signed up for career day." Marcus blinked. "You did?" "But now," Richard said, standing tall, "I think I will talk about something bigger." "I was just going to talk about cybersecurity." 2 days later, the school buzzed with excitement. Parents were coming in, and some had even set up little booths. One dad was a firefighter and had brought a helmet. A mom showed up in scrubs and handed out mini bandages. Marcus sat quietly, waiting. His eyes flicked to the clock. 10 and his heartbeat quickened. And then, just like that, the classroom door opened. His words were smooth, measured. He described cybersecurity in a way the kids could understand, like protecting a castle. But instead of walls and swords, he used code and firewalls. And walked Mr. Jenkins, tall, proud, suit-pressed, badge glinting under the lights. The room went still. Some students straightened in their chairs. Others exchanged surprised glances. He shared that he had once been told he would not belong, but that he had studied harder, trained longer, and stayed focused when others gave up. Even Miss Carver visibly stiffened. Richard greeted the class, introduced himself, and began to speak, instead of making a judgment. I raised him to do that, even when it is not easy. Especially when it is not easy. He talked about dedication, service, and trust. What matters most, he said, is not who doubts you. It is who you decide to become anyway. The students sat in stunned silence. Then someone clapped. Another joined. Soon the room echoed with applause. He paused and looked directly at Marcus. "My son told you the truth," he said, his voice still calm but unmistakably firm. "Dude," he whispered, "your dad is a boss." Some students looked away in shame. Others finally turned to glance at Marcus with something like awe. "And if you are ever unsure about someone's truth," Richard added, now glancing toward Miss Carver, "maybe ask a question. Miss Carver cleared her throat, her face red. She was nervous, the way grown-ups get when they realize they have made a mistake that no apology can easily fix. Richard ended with a short nod. "Thank you for having me." He left with the same quiet strength he entered with. "I judged you, and that was not fair. I saw something I did not expect, and instead of being curious, I mocked it. The laughter, the silence, the walk through the door, the transformation." The classroom remained silent for a few moments. At lunch that day, Marcus did not sit alone. Jamal pulled up a seat beside him, and how students gave him space, not out of fear, but respect. He noticed it in how Miss Carver started inviting students to share stories of their families without filtering them first. Marcus smiled a little. "I know. I am sorry I did not say anything before," Jamal added. "That was messed up." "It is okay," Marcus replied. "I know how it looked." After school, Miss Carver called Marcus aside. "I owe you more than just an apology," she said. Marcus nodded, but this time with his head held higher. "I learned something from your father," she said, "and from you." "Thank you," Marcus said simply. Weeks passed, then months. The moment faded in school gossip, replaced by the next big rumor, the next test, the next field trip. But something stayed different. Marcus noticed it in how teachers talked to him. She even launched a project titled People You Would Never Expect, where students interviewed people from their neighborhoods who had stories worth telling. Marcus wrote about his father again. This time, he included the full story. His paper won first place in the school writing contest. On the day of the award ceremony, Miss Carver stood at the podium. She cleared her throat before handing Marcus the certificate. "Today," she said, "we celebrate a student who taught us that truth sometimes walks in quietly, but it leaves loudly." As Marcus stepped up to take his award, his father stood at the back of the gym, arms crossed, watching with quiet pride. And Marcus, he did not just walk across the stage. He arrived.